Hello, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first wrap-up of the new year. I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of January, and I honestly could not be more excited to be doing this video. I feel like I have this reinvigorated love for reading, which was something that I was trying to reignite in the new year, and I feel like I'm off to such a good start. This month has surprised me. I've read a lot of things in different genres, not all of which I'll be talking about in this wrap-up because I don't like being repetitive, and I also don't like spoiling upcoming videos, but I'm going to be talking about 10 of the 27 books that I read in the month of January. Like I said, this month surprised me. I had some real gems in a variety of genres. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about them. Looking at the list of the things that I have to talk to you about, I think all of these pretty much are romance or thrillers, but I did read some memoirs, some nonfiction, some historical fiction, but those are going to be featured in other videos, so I'm not going to talk about them here. That being said, I feel like we should just get into it. I feel like we should just talk about all of the books that I read in the month of January. All 10 of these, for the most part, are gems. I say that. Some of them are actually terrible, but a mixed bag is always fun. First up, we have Check and Mate by Miss Allie Hazelwood. So this book, I was not expecting to pick up because it is a young adult book, and I'm going to be honest with you, I just kind of steer clear of young adult in general, even though I'm trying to kind of get into new genres or kind of rediscover my love for genres besides romance. I just really still avoid YA. I just feel like it's not targeted at my age demographic. Not to say that you can't read young adult books if you are older or younger or whatever, but I just personally don't tend to connect with them. That being said, Check and Mate by Allie Hazelwood is a book that I feel like kind of skews more new adult / adult romance, which really surprised me when picking this one up. This book's about our two main characters, Mallory and Nathan. Mallory at the beginning of the book is a character who I really sympathized for and was really excited to see her journey. She used to be a chess prodigy taught by her father, and we learned that there was some sort of falling out. Something happened with her dad. He's no longer around, and now Mallory is responsible for taking care of her family, which isn't the most exciting thing for a teenage girl to be doing. She's in her senior year of high school, and actually I think at the beginning of the book she graduates, so this is post high school, which again kind of gives it that new adult feel. But Mallory is working at a garage doing oil changes, tune-ups, that sort of thing, to make ends meet to support her family. Her mom has arthritis, and she used to have, I can't remember exactly what kind of career, but she had a very fulfilling career, is no longer able to really do that because of her arthritis, that it makes it pretty debilitating for her to do things. She's also taking care of her two little sisters. I just felt so bad for Mallory. Honestly, at the beginning of this book, I was curious to see how things would change and how her heart and her mind might be opened up to the possibilities of life, because at the beginning of the book, she isn't intending to go to college, even though she's really intelligent and probably would really benefit from university. And after kind of a series of events, she's pulled back into the world of chess so that she can perhaps win some money after she is fired from her job at the garage. When she is entering the world of chess, she ends up, I believe, beating Nolan at the beginning of the book. Did I say Nathan? Did I say Mallory? Mallory and Nolan. Is that actually his name? That doesn't feel right. It doesn't fucking matter. Let's be real. But the hero of this book is so charmed by Mallory and is so taken by her personality, her confidence, and her skill in chess. When other people seem to be intimidated by it, he kind of takes her under his wing in a sense, encourages her to do things that she might not do otherwise, and I just really liked their relationship. I felt like this was one of Allie Hazelwood's most grounded books, and I would love to see more of this kind of writing from her and some of her future work as well, because I think that the way that she made the story more than just the romance was really well handled. I thought it was really well crafted, and it just made this story feel so much more grounded than some of her other stuff. Don't get me wrong, I love her adult romance too, but I think this book felt the most real of all of her stories, and I would love for her to bring some of that back to the adult romance sphere. So I don't know, I really like this one. I give it 4 stars. It wasn't my perfect romance, but again, I think that's partially because it's YA. I don't want to penalize a book because of the genre that it's in, but I feel like the way that this book wrapped up was also just a little hasty for me, and I would have preferred maybe just a little bit more resolution of the romance between the two main characters. Again, this is a YA romance, so it is kind of more about the heroine kind of discovering herself, but I don't know. It's kind of a mixed bag, kind of a double-edged sword, because I did really like that, but I also wanted more resolution of the romance. So anyway, really enjoyed this one and would really recommend it if you haven't picked it up already. Don't let the YA fool you. Oh god. An author that maybe should have stayed just writing YA. The Blonde Identity by Allie Carter, a book that I picked up for a video that I have since scrapped, is about a woman who wakes up with amnesia. She doesn't know who she is, where she is. She's in an alleyway, and she's helped up by a, not Secret Service guy, but he is, what did I say? A secret operative. Yeah, he's some sort of secret operative. He knows that the person that he's helping is not the person he normally helps. It's this person's twin sister instead. The girl who wakes up in the alleyway is not not an operative, but the twin sister is. And this guy's like, how did you get to Paris? How did you wind up in this alleyway? Do you know who you are? She's like, no, I don't know who I am. And it's interesting to me that like he knows the twin sister, but he doesn't know the heroine, or like doesn't even know of her name. It's interesting. Basically, they are running from someone because everybody else thinks that she is her twin, and we don't know where the twin is, and that's like part of the story. It was really chaotic from start to fucking finish. Like, you go into this book and you know that the heroine has amnesia, like you understand that that's part of the plot line, but it made it sort of impossible for it to be a functioning romance. I'm not sure how you successfully pull off a memory loss romance. I'm sure they exist. Leave comments in the comment section down below. I would love to know if there are any just amazing memory loss books. This one I just don't think really worked because the heroine is trying to figure out who she is throughout the course of the story, her name, what she wants out of life, what her career is, and yet she's falling for this guy who she thinks is handsome, I guess. There was no real relationship development besides being in close quarters with this guy who's like trying to save you from being murdered. And like, sure, I suppose you could say that's romantic, but it wasn't enough to carry the entire story. And by the end of the book, she's trying so hard to be, I don't want to say introspective, but to be like heartfelt and romantic, and everything feels really overwrought given like the situations that the characters have been through up until this point. It was corny. I gave it 2 stars, didn't enjoy it, and this is one of the reasons why I'm not doing that video. I was going to do a video where I compare the winners of the Goodreads Choice Awards with the winners of the Amazon Best Romances of 2023, but the ones that I've read for that I have not enjoyed, and looking at the other books that are on that list, like the Lucy Score book from this year, I'm not gonna do that video. So thanks, I guess, Allie Carter for that. Just not for me. A book that really was delightful and is a really, really good debut romance is Forget Me Not by, I believe, Julie Soto. This one is about our 2 main characters, Amma and Elliot. Amma is short for Amaryllis, and Amma is a wedding planner, and she's gotten a big break. Essentially, this lesbian influencer is going to get married in, I believe, like LA or wherever the fuck this book is set, and Amma is in charge of doing the wedding planning. She's gotten like rave reviews from all of her friends, and she was like recommended to this couple by someone she knows, I believe. She's recently kind of struck out on her own. She used to work for a rival, not a rival wedding planner, but like a different wedding planner who was much older and kind of controlling. And now Amma is kind of, I don't want to say floundering, but she is trying to work on this wedding that is much bigger in scope than anything she's ever done before. And one of the only stipulations of this like contract is that the couple really wants to use Amma's ex's floral company. Elliot is a florist. He's really, really talented with his designs, and they just insist that they have to use him. So she's having to work with an ex while also trying to, I guess, gain confidence in her skills as a wedding planner. I mean, she knows that she's the shit, but also it's tough when it's like a completely new thing that she's trying out. This really high scale, like high profile event. And this book is really, really heavy on the wedding planning. So if you don't like that or aren't interested in that, you might not like this book. I loved the idea of this book, and I liked a lot of the execution, but it wasn't perfect, and that's okay because it was a debut. I ended up giving this book 4 stars for reference. I really enjoyed, I would say, the like confidence building that Amma went through as the story carried on. Surprisingly, the thing that I liked the least about this romance was the romance, but I don't think that'll be everyone's experience. There's sort of this like enemies to lovers kind of situation, or like scorned lover situation, where I believe Amma broke up with Elliot and he is still feeling kind of burned because he really loved her. And so it's a complicated romance. You do have like flashbacks to their like short-lived romance in the past and like how they are kind of mending their relationship in the present. I think the only thing that was really missing from this book for me was more emphasis spent on the present. I feel like so much of the present day chapters were spent with the wedding planning itself, and it could have been such a beautiful device to get these two working in close contact, right? And like having that be what sort of sparks their romance. And I guess in a sense, like they did work closely together, but that wasn't my experience reading the book. I didn't feel like there was enough like actual conversation between them in the present day chapters. And I'm notoriously picky about that kind of thing, so take from this what you will. I feel like almost all of my friends gave this 5 stars. I really like this, and I am really curious to see what this author does in the future, so 4 stars on that one. A book that I didn't love quite as much was Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I feel like so many people love this. I'm reading this for a list video that is going to be coming in March, God willing. It's a long list video, so I don't know if I'll be able to get through all the books. Fingers crossed I will. Big Little Lies. I tried to read this a few years ago, and it didn't work for me, so I DNF'd it and said, you know what, I'm cool just like watching the show at some point. I never watched the show. I mean, I think I watched like 1 episode, but where to begin? This book's set in Australia. The premise, I guess, of the book is that a murder has occurred, and we're trying to figure out what led up to this murder happening. We don't know who died, but we just know that at a school function for like these adults' children, it was like an adults only event, someone died, and we're trying to figure out how that happened. Here's my issue is like, if I'm reading a mystery thriller, I want to be thrilled. I want the mystery to be more of a question mark. I want the thrilling moments to feel like shock and awe, and nothing in this book really surprised me. Instead, unfortunately, we are left just reading mostly a woman's story of being domestically sexually abused by her husband. I'm not saying that that's not important. It certainly is. Like, I know that for a lot of people, this was like maybe their first introduction into reading that sort of thing in a book, and maybe it was really powerful for them. Not my first rodeo reading domestic violence in books, and I'm not saying it was handled poorly necessarily in this book. I just don't know that this particular domestic thriller was the proper place for that. I don't know if that makes any sense. I didn't like the characters. I felt like the drama here was a little bit silly, besides the domestic violence, obviously. That's not silly. And ultimately, I wanted more. It just like wasn't a satisfying read. I'm gonna leave it at that. 2 stars. Another 2-star read. The Last for a While, kind of. Business or Pleasure by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I don't know whether to call it quits with this author or not. I think she has published 3 books, one of which I enjoyed, one I thought was kind of mid, and then this one I kind of actively disliked. This one is about our 2 main characters who I conveniently, didn't write the names down of, although I do know the heroine's name is Chandler, which I actively fucking hated, okay? Basically, she is commissioned to ghostwrite the memoir of this teen star. He was the star on a CW sort of like teen paranormal drama, right? Like, let's say he's like Paul Wesley or something like that. So she's gonna write his memoir, ghostwrite his memoir. So she like follows him around to all these fan conventions to try to get to know him so she can write something genuine. It wasn't good. Oh, wait, I totally forgot a huge component of this book. She has sex with this man pretty early on in the story after kind of like a failing in her own personal life or like professional life. In her ghostwriting life, she fucks a stranger from a bar and it's terrible sex, even though he's really hot. And then she finds out later who he is and that she's actually going to be helping write his memoir or ghostwrite his memoir. And she lets him know, hey, date game, trash. I just wanted to let you know. Like, now we're going to have a professional working life together and this has been plaguing me and I just really needed to let you know that your date game is trash. And he's like, okay, thanks for letting me know, I guess. And so in exchange, I guess, for her writing him his memoir, she's also gonna like train him in the art of sexual pleasure and like how to please a woman. I don't know how this is like really a fair exchange, but I guess she gets some munchin from him in exchange. But it's like, is that really that great if it's gonna be bad like half the time? I don't know. This book was not my favorite. I feel like the romantic relationship development was sincerely lacking, which is actually kind of sad given that the sex scenes in this book were surprisingly hot. I didn't think that teaching someone how to be good at sex would be hot, but it was nice. It was like nice to read. I just think that the like romantic relationship development was just not there at all. And I also felt like Chandler's development, it feels weird saying my own name out loud like that. It sounds like I'm talking in the third person. Chandler's development was just not there. She was, I guess, trying to get out of the ghost writing game so that she could write her own novels or something like that, but she was too scared to do it and she needs encouragement. And I guess by the end of the book she does it, but it doesn't really feel that triumphant. I don't know. It's just not for moi. 2 stars. About to have 2 back-to-back 5-star bangers, alright? So I need you to strap in. Buckle up. First up, we have The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This is the first Stephanie Archer book that I have truly enjoyed. The first book in the series, I think I gave 2 stars. I felt like it was too smutty, not enough relationship development. The Fake Out had me fucking giggling and kicking my feet. You need to pick this book up. It's about Hazel and Rory, and it has such a, I don't want to say typical fake dating setup, but essentially Hazel is a physiotherapist for a hockey team, and Rory is one of the hockey players, and they used to date, I think, in like high school or something like that, or maybe he had a crush on her and they didn't date, something like that. It doesn't really matter. It's not relevant. He is like approaching her and he's like, you know what, I finally have to ask you out because I think you're hot. Like, I just want to do it. And she's like, no, I don't think so. Until she finds out that her ex has been traded to this team and she's going to be the physiotherapist for him. And so she doesn't look pathetic. She's going to date Rory and kind of make her ex jealous. She doesn't want to get the ex back, but she just wants to get him off her back. He is like just the kind of vindictive ex that no one really wants, who is just like kind of constantly teasing you and making you feel crazy. This just starts a beautiful fake dating relationship. The banter between Hazel and Rory is amazing. If you like a reverse Grumpy Sunshine, you're really gonna like this because Hazel is definitely very feisty and Rory is definitely very sweet. And I feel like their relationship development was just so organic and nice. There are a fair amount of sex scenes in this book as well, but I didn't feel like I was overwhelmed with sex scenes. I feel like the development was just there. I mean, it was just so fun to read. They have like their own, I don't want to say special language, but he has a fun nickname for her. He gets her like this little figurine. There's just so many sweet little moments. And if you've been craving something that feels easy to read but also romantic, I think this is a really good one to pick up. I just fucking loved this. And I'm very excited to read more from Stephanie Archer now, because after a couple of strikeouts, I was just unsure about this author. But one of my patrons encouraged me to read this book or said it was really great. And I was like, you know what? I'll give it a go. And it fucking slapped, okay? Loved it. Next, we have On the Same Page by Haley Cass. Okay. I feel like I have preconceived notions about sapphic romances. I'm just gonna put it out there. I think I've said this multiple times in videos. I just always think they're gonna be too sweet and too tender, and that they're not gonna be sex sexy and like angsty in the way that I want, because a lot of the early ones that I have read or have read in the past felt like that. Like a little too typical sapphic, like historical fucking movie, you know what I mean? Like the longing glances, the like touch of hand, but like they never get to actually consummate their love. Like I don't like that shit. That's not what I want. Okay? Just give me a contemporary romance that's sapphic. That's what I'm looking for. This fucking book did that and so much more. This is probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. It certainly is. This book's about Riley and Gianna, and they were roommates in high school. No, not high school. What? They were roommates in college. Now into the future, they both have successful careers. Riley works in television. She is trying to get this, like, I guess, news station up and running for younger people, because news at this point, at least like news media that is televised, tends to be targeted towards an older age demographic. And Riley really wants to have her own show, own program for younger people. She doesn't want to be on camera, but she hires someone to anchor the show, and she's like writing things for it. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked that she had like her own career she's really passionate about, and I cared about it by the end of the book. And then we have Gianna, who is an influencer who I believe mostly like reviews makeup or something like that. Her parents are, I believe, a model and an actor, and they don't really play a very active part in her life. So Riley and Gianna, just from the start, you can tell how special their friendship is and how much they lean on each other. They really do have their own language and just like their own way of interacting, and it's so fun to just watch that unfold. And then you get this incredible kind of bombshell flashback chapter with the two girls in college, really learning how their friendship came to be and realizing they weren't fast friends, to put it lightly. The fucking character development in this book is out of this goddamn world. I just want to hug this author for putting forth such an interesting and compelling romance. Like, the romantic component is really amazing, but the character development, especially on the part of Gianna, wow. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but wow. And then in the present day, there's this kind of like snafu that feels very fanfiction-y, where one of the women is gifted something by the other, and there's this sort of like miscommunication, and the woman who is gifted the gift is like, wait, does my friend have a crush on me? Wait, I might have a crush on my friend? Has this like delightful semi-miscommunication thing going on. Not an annoying miscommunication, but just like, you're just dying for the other person to kind of tell the other person that they like each other. The sex is incredibly hot, and I just wanted them to be together. I wanted them to like get married and have babies, okay? I just did. I loved this book. You gotta pick it up. If you have not fucking picked this book up, I'm sure most of you haven't, you need to pick it up. I read it for a video, and sure, I didn't need to include it in this wrap-up, but I needed to talk about it again, because I love this book so much. I need to read more of this author's backlist, and I need you to pick it up. Please, please, please. It's on Kindle Unlimited, of course, and it just blew me away. I gushed about it in the video where I let Amazon kind of like choose my romances, but I chose this one, and I did a damn good job. You need to go read this book, okay? Just read it. A book that you shouldn't read, actually, to switch gears, is The Husband's Secret by Leanne Moriarty. I did not like this book, to put it lightly. It was not a favorite of mine. I disliked this one even more than I disliked The Little Lies, okay? So this one is more interesting on the surface because we have three women. We're seeing how their lives intersect. One woman, her husband is cheating on her, so she takes her young son and flies to Sydney to live with her mom. While she is there, she enrolls her son into this Catholic school, and she kind of gets involved a little bit in like this secret, I guess, that's going on. Let me tell you the other women's points of view and kind of understand what's going on. There's also another woman whose husband travels a lot, and she finds a letter addressed to her in her husband's things, and it says something like, "To Cecilia in the event of my death," and she's like, what the fuck is this? And she asks him about it, and he says, please don't open that, and it's a whole thing, and we're like, okay, what is the husband's secret? Hence the title of the book. And then we have Rachel, who is kind of going through it a little bit because her son and daughter-in-law and grandson are going to be moving to the States, and after the murder of her 17-year-old daughter many years ago, she rightfully doesn't really like being apart from her family. Like, she just wants to enjoy the time she has with the people around her. Her husband is deceased as well, so it's like her whole family is basically leaving her. Anyway, all of these three women's lives intersect because of the husband's secret. I won't lie, like, I didn't know what the husband's secret would be, and I guess once it was revealed, I was like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, and now I understand how the women are connected. But I didn't like the sort of auxiliary, sort of accessory moments of the story. Namely, the woman who gets cheated on, okay? She gets cheated on by her husband, and her husband is fucking around with her cousin who is like her best friend, aka sister, like, they're homies. And they all kind of work together at this company that they founded, and they've been having an emotional affair for about a year. They haven't been sleeping together, but an emotional affair. After the cousin loses a lot of weight and is now beautiful in the eyes of her cousin. There were so many things about this book that I just didn't like. I didn't like the ending of this book. I didn't really like the message of this book, but I especially didn't like the enormous amount of fat phobia. Good God. It was painful to read. I was already kind of like having a bad body image couple of days, and reading this book was incredibly, I hate to say triggering, but basically. Fat's not a bad word, right? But it depends on the context, and it depends on how it's used. And the way that, I believe her name is Tess, was just constantly throwing throwing out that word and saying like, oh, I always thought my cousin would be pretty if she lost all this weight. Oh, you know, she's so disgusting, but like her eyes are so beautiful. What the fuck are you going on about? You sound insane and like a total bitch. That wasn't the word I was going to say, but we're trying to keep it PG-ish. I hated this book. And it's for that list video that I'm doing in March. So I'm talking about the books that I'm reading as I go in these wrap-ups. I hated it. 2 stars. Let's move the fuck on, okay? 3 books that were all kind of mid, okay? I hate to be that person, but we gotta do it. Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This one let me down. I'm so sad about it. It was about Julian and Dahlia. Julian ends up buying this Victorian mansion in his hometown, and he is going to fix it up, him and his construction company. And who has recently come to town but his college crush, Dahlia. Dahlia ended up dating Julian's roommate, Oliver. Dahlia and Oliver have recently parted ways because of some of the details of the prenup that he put forth before they got married, or were going to get married. They didn't end up getting married. Dahlia's kind of upset. Her and Julian team up to kind of work on this house together because Dahlia had a TV show with her ex where she did like interior design. So yeah, they're gonna team up on this Victorian mansion together. That wasn't really much of the story, to be honest, though, was them like teaming up. This book, I guess, was unlike Forget-Me-Not because you do have less emphasis on the thing that the book's actually supposed to be, which is the design portion of the book, and more, I guess, relationship development. I had a couple of issues with this book. My main one is that at the beginning of the story, you need to lay the groundwork, I think, for what character growth is going to take place, right? We have our heroine who is reeling from the news that she got, which is that she is infertile, which that's a thing that I'm going to talk about later that really pissed me off. But she's dealing with infertility, which, hey, been there, done that, not fun. But she's unwilling to sort of like even say in her internal dialogue what she's dealing with. And so it always just gets kind of pushed to the wayside, pushed to the back. And it's like, okay, sure, you're getting in this romantic relationship. That's not going to heal you though. You need to deal with the things that you have going on. So that was kind of annoying. And then same with Julian. He was mad at Dahlia because of the way that they had a kiss in college and then she ended up dating his roommate. Okay, looks bad, I guess. Julian's dealing with his, I guess, resentment towards Dahlia, but like not really internally. And so it makes for kind of a weird romance when, you know, these characters have baggage, but they're unwilling to really talk about it until like the 70% mark of the book. And I'm not saying they need to spill their guts to their hero or heroine, but we need to know as an audience what they're dealing with so that we can watch them grow from it. Otherwise, it's just fucking boring. Also, I don't think that the way that they handled their relationship was great. I didn't love that they were hooking up so much and not talking about their feelings. I don't know, that's just like a personal issue of mine. The biggest issue, no, it's not the biggest issue, but it was something that I really didn't enjoy, was the handling of Dahlia's infertility. As someone with infertility, I'm not sensitive necessarily to it being in books. I just want it to be handled correctly. And Dahlia's diagnosis is not diminished ovarian reserve or endometriosis or PCOS or really anything that could actually cause you to not be able to have children. She took a genetic test that told her that she is a carrier for a recessive gene. I made sure to go back and look in the book to make sure that that's what she was talking about, and that's kind of what I've gathered. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty much what it said. And she doesn't want to pass on whatever she has to her child. Now, if you know anything about being a carrier for a recessive gene, that means that your partner also has to be a carrier for that same recessive gene for your child to have a 25% chance of having that genetic disorder. And you know what could potentially solve that for you? IVF. I'm not saying everyone needs to do IVF or that it is not valid to be concerned about being a carrier for something. That's not like a diagnosis of infertility. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to invalidate anyone. I'm not saying that that's not a totally valid thing or totally valid reason to do IVF, but that doesn't mean that you are incapable of having a child. And I'm not saying you like shouldn't grow your family a different way if you feel so compelled, but I just don't know that that's like what I would be using if I were an author to say that my character has infertility. I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody, right? I'm not saying these things aren't valid or that you shouldn't be concerned if you're a carrier for something. If you want to be concerned, that's fine. But that doesn't mean that you can't have a kid. 2 stars. Didn't enjoy that very much. Or did I give it 3 stars? I don't know. It was fine. It was a fine book. It just like wasn't a favorite book. It doesn't matter what the rating is, really. Let's talk about Don't Want You Like a Best Friend by Emma Albin. This is a historical romance that looks like a YA, and it kind of felt like YA, even though I think this is supposed to be an adult romance. The book's about Beth and Gwen. Beth's mom has recently put it on Beth's shoulders that she needs to get married, right? She needs to fuck a rich man so that they're not destitute because the dad died. When she's out in society, she meets this girl named Gwen, and Gwen is fabulous. She's blonde, and she doesn't give a fuck about finding a man because her father, who is single, isn't encouraging her to necessarily, and there's a big difference between having a single parent who is a dad versus a mom, right? In historical times. So Gwen doesn't feel compelled. She can kind of live, laugh, love her life away, and Beth and Gwen team up basically because they're like, wait, neither of us want to get married, and our parents seem to have it passed together. What if we parent trapped them, and then we wouldn't have to marry? Isn't that fabulous, okay? And through this process, they get close. And through this process, Gwen makes out with Beth because she's like, I actually have the hots for you and I don't like guys at all. And Beth's like, this is actually pretty tight. We definitely need to parent trap our parents. And I believe they succeed. And they live happily ever after. Except for it was just not really that. The parent trap aspect of this book was compelling, but so much time was spent on it that I don't think enough time was spent on Beth and Gwen's relationship development. It's like Gwen discovers that she likes Beth, makes out with her, and then Beth's like, oh my god, wait, yes, let's get together. And it didn't feel like a natural progression of where their relationship was. I just felt like the characters felt pretty immature too. It just like really wasn't for me, which is such a bummer because I had such a banger of a sapphic romance to read this month. I was really hoping that this one would be another one that I could recommend like wholeheartedly and readily, but it just didn't work for me. This is this author's debut, so maybe more of her books in the future will be more well suited for what I'm into, but this just like wasn't executed in the way that I like. And then lastly, a book that I read for my Patreon book club, my monthly book club, was The Breakup Tour by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegeman Broca. I said it right the first time, which never happens. This book's about our two main characters, Riley and Max. Riley is kind of a stand-in for Taylor Swift. This book is dedicated to Swifties, so it's pretty clear that Riley is supposed to be a stand-in for Taylor. And she writes a breakup album, each song dedicated to a different man. Now, the men are not named, but everyone can kind of guess which song is about which person. And she recently just got a divorce from a guy who she had been with for not very long, like 3 months, I think. And everyone assumes that the best track off of this album is about that guy, but it's actually about her college relationship. She really wants to, I guess, throw people off of her scent. Not even throw people off her scent, but like correct the, I guess, misinformation. So she contacts Max, who is her college sweetheart, and she's like, hey, would you come on tour with me? And we can like sing longingly into each other's eyes, or like you can play piano and I'll sing into your eyes. And people will assume that this is about you because it is about you. And initially he's like, no, but he wants to, I suppose, prove to his family that like his life isn't pathetic because he really only dreams of like taking care of this retirement community, I guess, that his parents own and like are retiring from. I don't know. They're like, your life's pathetic. Please go on tour with this woman. And so he does. This one I really wanted to like. I love Taylor Swift, obviously, and I really love the idea of a rock star romance. Most rock star romances I fuck with heavily. This one I think was kind of a fail. From the beginning, everything just felt very flat and emotionless, which is not really what you want from a romance. I just didn't connect with the writing, which is odd because I felt like the writing in the first book from this author duo was just so visceral and so emotional, and in this book I didn't really feel that way. I felt very disconnected from the characters and their emotions, and that was definitely furthered by the fact that I don't think Max and Riley really had a lot of on-page time together. I've said it once and I'll say it a million fucking times. Second chance romances are incredibly challenging because you're trying to convince me that two characters who have a past should be together in the future or in the present. You need to give me really compelling flashback chapters or you need to give me really convincing present day reasons why they should be together, and I just didn't feel like any of those reasons were present. Sure, they went on tour together, but most of the book just felt like a lot of filler and a lot of fluff. There was no fun banter between the two of them, which I felt like was a missed opportunity. I actually think that this book could have been better and more interesting if Riley had like met someone, let's say in college, and spent like a couple of days with them. It didn't really get to know them. They were kind of like a what if situation, you know? And then she asked that person to come on tour, and then she got to know them on tour and figure out that this is like true love. Instead, they just assume that it's true love because they've been together before, and even though they've been separated by a decade, like they should still be together. That doesn't really make sense to me, you know? I love to believe that love conquers all, and I guess in theory that could work, but I just don't really understand how their personalities gelled together. There were no conversations had by these two characters, like really ever, except for him trying to convince her that love can last. It was not what I wanted it to be. I think I'd give this like 2 or 3 stars. It was not the worst thing I've ever read. Motionless romance is like never going to be a 5-star. I think we can all agree on that. So those are the books that I read in the month of January. As you can see, it was sort of a mixed bag. Again, some of the books that I didn't talk to y'all about in this video were also a mixed bag. Some were 5 stars, some were 2 stars. I've had an interesting reading month, but overall it feels hopeful. Like I'm excited for this year ahead. I'm excited to see what other genres I can explore. I'm doing a video in February where I read from a genre that I like never read from, so I'm very excited and looking forward to that. I'm just excited, and I hope you are too. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite books of January were. I'm always looking for stuff to add to my TBR. I'm really looking to stay on pace with my reading challenge for the year as well. For a few days there, the amount of books read for me was the same as the day that it was, so like 26 books on the 26th day of January, and I want to get back to that because it makes me feel good, okay? So if you have any like amazing 5-star reads that I just like have to read, let me know. But thanks so much for watching this video. I love you so much, and I'll see you in the next one.